This is absolutely insane, and I'm still shaking from what I just witnessed on SmackDown. Brock Lesnar just delivered the most brutal and savage beatdown in WWE history by completely destroying Jacob Fatu in a rampage so violent that it left the entire arena in stunned silence. But here's what's got me seeing red. This wasn't just a match or even a normal wrestling beatdown. This was a systematic demolition that looked more like a legitimate fight than sports entertainment. The Beast incarnate unleashed a level of violence on the Samoan werewolf that has fans questioning whether what they witnessed was even legal. The moment Brock's music hit and he came storming down to the ring with murder in his eyes, you could feel the atmosphere change completely. Jacob Fatu, who has been absolutely dominant since joining the bloodline, suddenly looked like a deer in headlights as 300 pounds of pure rage and muscle came charging toward him. What followed was 6 minutes of the most one-sided violence I've ever seen in professional wrestling, with Brock treating Jacob like a ragdoll and throwing him around the ring like he weighed nothing. What makes this beatdown even more shocking is that it came completely out of nowhere with no build-up or storyline justification. Jacob Fatu was in the middle of cutting a promo about the bloodline's dominance when Brock's music suddenly hit and all hell broke loose. The surprise element made the attack even more devastating as Jacob had no time to prepare or defend himself against the most dangerous man in WWE history. The level of violence Brock displayed was unlike anything we've seen from him in years, bringing back memories of his most brutal UFC fights. He was throwing legitimate strikes, applying real submission holds, and using amateur wrestling techniques that looked more like an actual fight than entertainment. Multiple times during the beatdown, it appeared that Jacob Fatu was genuinely hurt and struggling to continue. But here's what's making wrestling fans absolutely livid. The referees and security personnel seemed helpless to stop Brock's rampage. Multiple officials tried to intervene but were either ignored or physically moved aside by the Beast, who was completely focused on destroying Jacob Fatu. The lack of control and the apparent real danger created an atmosphere of chaos that had fans genuinely concerned for Jacob's safety. The most disturbing moment came when Brock locked in what appeared to be a legitimate chokehold that left Jacob unconscious for several terrifying seconds. The medical team rushed to ringside as Jacob's body went limp, and for a moment it looked like we might be witnessing a real medical emergency. The fact that Brock continued his assault even after Jacob was clearly defenseless shows just how out of control this situation became. The crowd's reaction throughout the beatdown was unlike anything I've ever heard, with a mixture of excitement, concern, and genuine fear as they watched one of WWE's most protected stars being absolutely demolished. The usual cheers and chants were replaced by worried murmurs and shocked silence as fans struggled to process the level of violence they were witnessing. Even the commentary team seemed unsure how to call what was happening. What's particularly infuriating is that this attack seems to have been motivated by Brock's jealousy over Jacob Fatu's position in the bloodline and his relationship with Roman Reigns. Sources backstage suggest that Brock has been frustrated with his reduced role in WWE and saw Jacob's success as a direct threat to his own legacy. The pettiness of attacking someone over perceived slights makes this beatdown even more disgusting. The medical evaluation of Jacob Fatu after the attack revealed injuries that go far beyond what's normal for a wrestling match. Reports suggest he suffered a concussion from Brock's repeated strikes to the head, potential damage to his ribs from the brutal suplex variations, and injuries to his neck from the chokehold that left him unconscious. This wasn't just a beatdown, it was an attempt to seriously injure a fellow performer. But perhaps most shocking of all is the revelation that WWE officials may have known this attack was coming and did nothing to prevent it. Backstage sources suggest that Brock had been making threats against Jacob for weeks and that security should have been prepared for this possibility. The failure to protect one of their rising stars from this assault represents a massive failure in WWE's duty of care. The aftermath of the beatdown has been chaotic, with WWE's medical team working overtime to assess Jacob's condition while trying to manage the fallout from such a violent incident. The company's stock price has already begun fluctuating as investors worry about the legal and public relations implications of allowing such brutality on their programming. This incident could have consequences that extend far beyond just wrestling. Social media has exploded with reactions ranging from amazement at Brock's dominance to outrage over the apparent lack of safety protocols. The hashtag too far is trending as fans debate whether what they witnessed crossed the line from entertainment into actual assault. The polarized reactions show just how controversial and shocking this beatdown really was. The investigation into how this situation was allowed to occur is revealing serious problems with WWE's backstage security and talent management. Multiple sources confirm that there had been tension between Brock and Jacob for weeks, but no steps were taken to keep them separated or address the conflict before it exploded into violence. The negligence in handling this situation could expose WWE to serious liability. What makes this beatdown even more disturbing is the revelation that Brock may have been under the influence of performance-enhancing substances that increased his aggression and strength. Witnesses describe him as being unusually intense and violent even by his standards, leading to speculation about what might have contributed to his explosive behavior. The implications for WWE's wellness policy could be significant. The reaction from other members of the bloodline has been swift and furious, with Roman Reigns reportedly demanding an emergency meeting with WWE management about the attack on his family member. Solo Sikoa and the other members are said to be planning retaliation against Brock, which could lead to even more violence and chaos. The situation has created a powder keg that could explode at any moment. Industry veterans who witnessed the beatdown are describing it as one of the most legitimate displays of violence they've ever seen in professional wrestling. Former wrestlers and officials are questioning whether what they witnessed was actually a work or if it crossed over into a real fight. The blurred lines between entertainment and reality have created a situation that's unprecedented in modern wrestling. The legal implications of this incident could be massive, with Jacob Fatu's representatives reportedly considering pressing charges for assault and battery. The fact that the attack was unprovoked and resulted in legitimate injuries could make this a criminal matter rather than just a wrestling storyline. Brock could find himself facing serious legal consequences for his actions. Medical experts who have reviewed footage of the beatdown are expressing concern about the long-term effects of the injuries Jacob sustained. The repeated head trauma and the chokehold that left him unconscious could have lasting neurological consequences that affect his ability to compete in the future. Brock's rampage may have permanently altered Jacob's career trajectory. The financial impact on WWE is already being felt, with advertisers expressing concerns about the level of violence displayed on their programming. Several sponsors are reportedly reconsidering their partnerships after witnessing what appeared to be a real assault broadcast on live television. The company's reputation for family-friendly entertainment has been severely damaged. But here's what's got longtime wrestling fans absolutely furious. This attack may have been orchestrated as a way to write Jacob Fatu off television due to backstage politics rather than legitimate creative reasons. The systematic nature of the beating and the specific targeting of areas that would cause maximum injury suggest this may have been more calculated than it appeared. The potential abuse of Jacob for political reasons is absolutely disgusting. The investigation is also revealing that multiple WWE employees witnessed Brock's increasingly erratic behavior in the days leading up to the attack but failed to report it to management. The culture of silence and the unwillingness to speak up about potential dangers created the perfect storm for this violent incident. The systemic failures that allowed this to happen are being exposed. International wrestling promotions have expressed shock and concern over the level of violence displayed, with several companies distancing themselves from WWE's handling of the situation. The incident has damaged WWE's reputation globally and raised questions about the company's commitment to performer safety. The long-term consequences for WWE's international relationships could be significant. The revelation that this beatdown may have been motivated by contract negotiations and financial disputes makes it even more sickening. Sources suggest that Brock was unhappy with his current deal and saw attacking Jacob as a way to demonstrate his value to the company. Using violence against a colleague as a negotiating tactic represents a new low even by wrestling standards. Psychological experts who have analyzed Brock's behavior during the attack describe someone who appeared to be in a dissociative state, completely disconnected from the normal constraints that govern professional wrestling. The level of sustained violence and apparent disregard for Jacob's safety suggests serious underlying issues that need to be addressed before Brock can return to action. The impact on Jacob Fatu's family has been devastating, with his relatives expressing shock and anger over the unprovoked attack. The Anoa'i family, which has a long and proud wrestling tradition, is reportedly considering their own response to what they view as an assault on one of their own. The potential for family conflict could create even more drama and violence. Security footage from backstage reveals that Brock had been pacing and agitated for hours before the attack, showing signs of extreme stress and potential mental instability. The failure of WWE personnel to recognize these warning signs and take preventive action represents a massive breakdown in their safety protocols. Multiple people could have prevented this if they had acted on what they observed. The medical team that treated Jacob after the beatdown has described his injuries as severe and potentially career-threatening. The combination of head trauma, internal injuries, and the psychological impact of such a vicious assault could affect him for years to come. Brock's rampage may have destroyed one of wrestling's most promising young talents. Fan reactions at the arena were captured on social media and show people genuinely upset and concerned about what they witnessed. Many fans were seen leaving the building in disgust while others were calling for security to intervene. The negative reaction from the live audience shows just how badly this situation was handled by WWE. The investigation into WWE's handling of this incident is expanding to include federal authorities who are concerned about workplace safety violations. The company could face massive fines and sanctions if it's determined that they failed to provide adequate protection for their employees. The legal ramifications continue to grow as more details emerge. As Jacob Fatu fights to recover from his injuries and Brock Lesnar faces the consequences of his actions, the wrestling world grapples with questions about violence, safety, and the responsibility of promotions to protect their talent. This incident has forever changed how people view the line between entertainment and real violence in professional wrestling.